Three,
Three,
two,
two,
one. Welcome back to SCP Authors Anomalous, where I actually should probably start saying what this podcast is actually about before getting into it. On this podcast, I bring on authors from the SCP Wiki to read their works and talk about them, as well as what they do on the Wiki in general. Today, I am joined by a newly made admin of the SCP Wiki and creator of the Interviewing Icons series, Whiteguard.
Howdy.
Oh, all right.
It's a bit of a mouthful there.
A little bit, yeah. I honestly didn't realize how much I actually was about to say before I started saying it, so it was... Maybe I should have written that out, but whatever. I'm... Welcome back. I think this is episode 6. Yeah, so who are you?
Howdy. Yeah, I'm Whiteguard. Been around for a little bit. Been more popular for the last little bit, for the past couple of years. But yeah, I'm Whiteguard. I'm a staff member on the SCP Wiki. Most known for my series of interviews, the Interviewing Icons. I also do another series called Meet the Administrators. It's not as popular or anything along those lines. But yeah, I have a series of interviews. I just interview famous authors or people, on the site. Mainly written interviews, of course.
Yeah, super cool. A little bit similar to what I do with Create Stuff, but except it's written out instead. Honestly, this is I told you this before the podcast starts, but I'll say it on record too. Your interviews were definitely something I looked to when I was starting my other podcast, Create Stuff, to know how to do interviewing a little bit better, just because I wanted to see how a lot of different people did it, and I was already pretty deep in the SCP Foundation sauce. So, really enjoyed your series, though.
Well, if it gives you any comfort, a lot of what I have based my interviews on is from a YouTuber that I'd like to watch. And so it's kind of going full circle here. So,
dang, it all connects. Can I ask what YouTuber it is?
It's Thorin. I'm into esports, and he's involved in esports, and so he's the esports historian, is how he goes by. So,
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah. So, he does some things with esports and some things with philosophy and he's made a couple different videos on how to interview people.
Oh, really? I'm going to have to check that out. That's actually really good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, send me a link to that after the podcast is over. I would love to see that.
No problem.
Awesome. Esports and philosophy. What a combination.
He's a very peculiar man.
Yeah, sounds like it. But anyways, I think we'll go ahead and get into the article that we'll be reading today, SCP-5151. This is your only SCP article on the site, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a long one, about 6,000 words. So it's a little bit much to cover on the entirety of this podcast. So we're just going to do up until the end of Addendum 1, and then we're also going to cover the last addendum and just a little bit at the end. And to give a summary of what happens in the middle.
All right.
However, if you're listening to this, I would recommend, if you're up for it, I would recommend listening to our what would you say? Reading. Wow, I'm so good at this. I would recommend you listen to our reading of the first bit and then go read the rest of the article yourself and then come back if you want to get the whole thing. But we have a lot to talk about today, so I don't think we'll quite have time to cover the whole article. However, it is a very good one. I highly recommend it. I read the whole thing before this, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I wrote it before I became a staff member. I wrote it on my return to the site because I had a little bit of a gap there. And I wrote what I thought I would like the most and posted it, and it was successful. At least in the sense that it's still on the site.
Fair enough. All right, well, in that case, how about we get into it? Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
How about you?
All right, sure. I'll read up until the description and then popcorn it to you.
Sure thing.
All right. Item number SCP-5151. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-5050... Oh my god. SCP-5151 is to be housed in a large humanoid containment cell at Humanoid Containment Site 063. No electrical devices are permitted inside of the cell except for an audio recording device. All lights in the containment cell have been replaced by oil-fed lamps built into the walls. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, MTF Pi 7, honor-bound knights, is to enter the containment cell to train and spar with SCP-5151 for 7 hours. Every Sunday evening, a wooden table with 8 wooden chairs are to be placed in the center of the containment cell. All members of MTF Pi 7 are required to seat themselves with SCP-5151 at the table. Personnel is instructed to prepare and serve various types of bread, pies, roasted pig, poultry, stews, and soups, along with a variety of wines and ales to those seated at the table. There's a footnote here. Consult the on-site culinary team for further details on SCP-5151's banquet requests. MTF Pi 7 is allowed to leave the containment cell after SCP-5151 becomes incapacitated from the alcoholic beverages. Sorry if you can't tell, I'm a tad bit tired.
That's perfectly fine. With the description, SCP-5151 is a male humanoid covered in a chainmail hauberk of Polish origin from the medieval era with a laurel wreath around its head. The footnote for laurel wreath, or garland of laurel leaves, were worn in ancient Greek and Roman times as a symbol of victory or status. It identifies as the Black Knight, although it references many other names and titles in the past. SCP-5151 does not require rest, food, or water for survival, although it consumes food and beverages for pleasure. When SCP-5151 deems a subject dishonorable, SCP-5151 will stab through the subject's aorta with its longsword and then proceed to anomalously drain the victim's blood from their body completely. Despite the appearance of having clothing and armor, every piece and every aspect of SCP-5151's body, garments, armor, longsword, and other adornments is made up of the same composition. This composition can pass through material objects and is impervious to physical damage. The entity has the capability to adjust this composition as it desires. These anomalous characteristics make containment of SCP-5151 through conventional means difficult. During its discovery, the entity was found to be capable of forming an anomalous mark onto the subject's hand, when said subject forms a blood pact with the entity. Another footnote, a blood pact is a method used to put an agreement into effect. It is generally used for serious agreements and is considered a much stronger binding than other methods. This mark is referred to as SCP-5151-2. When forming a blood pact, SCP-5151 can establish an -2 instance with several subjects at the same time, by creating a pact with their leader. -2 causes a mild burning sensation that varies in strength based on unknown factors. Affected individuals have had a noticeable increase in feelings of inadequacy and dread, as well as an increase in stress levels. It is unknown at this time whether or not SCP-5151-2 possesses any mind-affecting properties, or if these factors can be attributed to the nature of this assignment, combined with frustrations due to the inability to remove SCP-5151-2.
Alright, you want me to take over from the addendum?
Sure.
Okay. SCP-5151 was discovered after the Foundation received reports of anomalous vigilante murderers across the the
Alsace, Lorraine, Champagne, and Orléans.
Dang, okay. Provinces of France. MTF Pi 1 city slickers were deployed to investigate the separate murders of black boxes and black boxes. 2 out of 3 men responsible for the murder of 4 adults, as well as the kidnapping and trafficking of 18 children into child slavery from an orphanage in Black Boxes, France. MTF Pi 1 agents found that each man had recently expired due to exsanguination. Exsanguination is loss of blood due to a degree sufficient to cause death. Hopefully I pronounced that mildly correct.
Pretty close.
Both men possessed large stab wounds through their aortas. However, each man's body and clothing lacked any visible or forensic traces of blood. This description followed the same pattern of the previous vigilante murders, and the MTF agents apprehended the third man responsible for the orphanage incident, Black Boxes, following a brief search in the region. On 08/08/2019 at 3:17 a.m., during the transport of the subject to Site 063, MTF agents encountered SCP-5151 standing in the path of their vehicles. SCP-5151 began walking toward the vehicles as MTF agents attempted to make contact with the entity. The entity continued walking towards the vehicle despite warnings from the MTF agents. MTF Pi-1 proceeded to open fire on SCP-5151 to no effect. When the entity began to approach the vehicle which contained the subject, MTF agents attempted to restrain the entity physically. However, the agents were unable to grab the entity due to its ability to pass through matter. SCP-5151 stabbed the subject through his aorta with a longsword. After killing the subject, SCP-5151 proceeded to stare at MTF Pi-1 black box before lunging toward and killing him with the same process. SCP-5151 proceeded to sheath its longsword and raise its hands in a submissive manner while the MTF agents continued to discharge their weapons in the entity. When MTF Pi-1 ceased their fire, SCP-5151 proceeded to greet them. "Brave fellows, do not worry about him. I disposed of him as I have with others of his lot. Loyalty is a virtue, and the lack of it will lead to the death of chivalry. My presence is a testament that chivalry will never die. With this being said, I understand you have been searching for me. Pray tell what you might need of me." This statement led to MTF Pi-1 surrounding SCP-5151 and contacting Site Command. After MTF Pi-1 contacted Site 063 concerning the entity, Site Director Black Boxes decided to send senior researcher Sylvain Moreau.
I've always said that as Moreau.
Moreau. Okay, I thought this was it. Along with Psychosecurity to speak with the entity. After his arrival, Dr. Moreau proceeded to conduct an interview with SCP-5151. Okay, interview log 5151.il.01. Interviewer, Senior Research Sylvain Moreau, interviewed SCP-50... Okay, forward, this interview was conducted on a deserted roadside 3 kilometers from Site 063. This interview was conducted in the presence of Mobile Task Force Pi-1 along with security personnel. The following interview has been translated into English for convenience. Alright, you'll be Dr. Moreau, and I will be 5151 as we discussed prior.
And I'm assuming we're going to speak in English rather than in French, as it calls.
I would hope so. I don't know if I'm ready to translate right on the spot.
Here we go. Hello, I am Dr. Moreau.
Ah, a doctor, I see. I presume you wish to ask me some questions, then?
You are correct. I would indeed like to interview you. Would you first explain your reasoning for why you killed one of our agents, despite sparing the remaining agents who were attacking you?
Good sir, you must seek out better company than filth such as he. This agent, as you called him, was worth less than the ground he stood upon.
I do not understand. How exactly do you differ from the others?
Oh, I see. Well, suppose even doctors struggle to see the hearts of men. Allow me to provide a hint for you, good sir. As a good man once said, there is no disease that I spit on more than treachery.
Oh my. This is one that I don't really remember how you pronounce. Achilles or Achilles, something like that. Achilles, correct?
Well, not only a doctor, but also a historian. What a lovely find. Achilles, the father of tragedy, but as such I never cared for his work. It was a bit too depressing and all the while bland for my taste. Nevertheless, he was a good man. But enough of that. I do assume that you have more to ask of me than a mere conversation about old times.
Yes, I do have many questions for you, so I must ask, are you willing to stay with us for the time being, to help us further our understanding?
I will gladly keep you and your fellow acquaintances company, as I have been searching for company myself. However, I do have a few conditions concerning my stay.
Well, we can make certain accommodations. Please continue.
I will need plenty of space to practice my swordplay. I will also need a retinue to train. Provide me with your 7 best agents, as you call them. Men of virtue, brave, and those with reactions of a white eagle. I do not intend to deliver my second best on any soul during training. We will train every Tuesday and every Thursday. We have a grand banquet to celebrate our training every Sunday. The other days, you may use my men as you see fit, good doctor. Comply with my requests, and you shall have a good deal, good sir.
I'm afraid I do not have the authority to agree to terms such as those. Please allow me to confirm this with my superior first.
At times, one man's best effort is to call upon the aid of another. Go on, good sir, and discuss this matter with your superior. End log 0404 AM. God, wait, did he do this interview at... He did this interview at 4 AM?
Yes.
God.
It started at 3:58, ended at 4:04, and I actually timed myself whenever I read it to kind of sort of get the general time scale there.
Smart. Closing statement. After gaining approval to SCP-5051's request with Site Director Black Boxes, SCP-5151 requested to make a blood pact with Dr. Moreau to seal the agreement. 5151 informed Dr. Moreau that it would not agree to stay unless Dr. Moreau made a blood pact with it for himself and his assistants. After informing the Site Director of the situation, the Site Director allowed Dr. Moreau to make the decision on whether or not to accept. Due to the nature of SCP-5151's capability, it was agreed that containment would be challenging without a degree of cooperation involved. After gaining permission to do so, Dr. Moreau complied with the request by slicing his hand before proceeding to shake hands with 5151. A mark labeled with the word "onerous" appeared on the top of Dr. Moreau's right hand as well as the right hands of his assistant researchers. Upon approval from Site Director Black Boxes, MTF Pi 7 Honor-Bound Knights has been formed to accommodate the current containment procedures of SCP-5151. These 7 agents were chosen based on their skill in hand-to-hand combat as well as on their character compatibility with SCP-5151. After investigation of Pi 1 Black Box is beginning after the belongings after the events which occurred, it was found that Pi 1 Black Box had several classified SCP documents, as well as a note instructing him to steal SCP Black Boxes. It is believed that Pi 1 Black Box had a connection with the Chaos Insurgency. And just to be clear, Pi 1 Black Box is the one who was killed by 5151 earlier.
That's correct.
I know saying Pi 1 Black Box is mildly confusing, especially when you have Pi 1 Black Boxes, but it's actually apostrophe S, not like multiple black boxes, as I say normally. Okay, yeah, we're about 17 minutes in. I think we should probably stop there. Okay, would you mind giving us some detail about what happens up until this last addendum here?
Certainly. So more or less, Dr. Moreau and his research team are trying to figure out more about 5151. It comes up that 5151 is very... he welcomes the conversation, he welcomes the interview questions, but he's kind of dancing around the topic of who he really is or where he's really from, right? And so it becomes a focus of all the interviews and all the research of trying to nail down who 5151 really is, right? Because it's becoming apparent that 5151 has had some aliases over the years. Or at the very least, 5151 has said that he was these people over the years. And so trying to hammer down who the original person that 5151 was becomes a point of interest, which later gets revealed in some way, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Oh, additionally, there's a particular incident that occurs. It's sort of a bit of foreshadowing. People guess this early on anyways. Things never go well when you make blood pacts with anomalous creatures.
Yeah.
Alright, where were you wanting to continue?
I think where we would continue, it'll be... Okay, hold on. I am kind of scrolling through... Mm-hmm. I scrolled through a little bit of it just on screen here, just if you guys wanted to look at it. But if you want to read the rest of the thing yourself, I would highly recommend you go and check it out. Link in the description. It is a really good article, well worth your time, and then come back here now. Where I was suggesting we break off would be this last interview log, and then the two emails that follow it.
Sure.
So you might want to explain what the incident ends up being.
Sure. So, more or less, 5151 is bound by a code of honor. And because of this honor and because of this code, whenever people go against that code, he's compelled to finish those people, kill those people. And so whenever someone's dishonorable in his sight, he has to do so. It's not just something that he really chooses, he's more so compelled, which we'll kind of get into. But he's more so compelled to do it. And there's a little bit of espionage that sort of comes in here. But more or less, the Dr. Moreau is not able to keep his promise, nor his research team, of accompanying him on one of his scheduled days that there's supposed to be some interaction. And because of this, 5151 breaks out containment and goes on a murderous spree to maintain the honor and, sanguinate these people. So, and once again, there's a bit of espionage. The site director was forcing the Dr. Moreau to not do these things, and it turns out that the site director was already dead whenever these demands were made, and that another group of interest was the one making this demand. And so you can speculate on what that group of interest was.
Right, yeah. I enjoyed that a lot. Very honestly, I did not see that coming, but I definitely should have. Very good. I also, notably, it was, of course, only the people who were part of that blood pact who were killed. I did like how the members of Pi 7 tried to, fight 5151, but, and one of them used a taser on him, but the guy just slapped 5151 just slapped him. Didn't kill any of them. Okay. In that case, how about we pick back up from Addendum 5151.06, Research Update.
SCP-5151 has been moved to... these are updated containment procedures. SCP-5151 has been moved to Integrated Containment Site 54. MTF Pi 7 has relocated to Site 54 to provide further accommodations to SCP-5151. All other accommodations to 5151 are still granted. However, the walls of the containment cell have been constructed with a grid pattern of electrical wiring inside. This grid pattern aligns with the door to the cell when closed to complete the circuit. An electrical current of 1,000 amps is passed through this wire grid at all times. MTF Pi 7 will be armed with experimental Imtishkin EDAs, which are electrical discharge arrays. So a lot to do with electricity, because something that happened in the incident.
Oh, I get it. Okay, I had never picked up on that, but that makes sense. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second.
Certainly.
And here we have an interview log with the interviewer, senior researcher Herman Richter, interviewing 5151 after being moved to their new containment cell at Site 54.
And a little bit of context. The sites that I chose, obviously people don't have to do this when they're writing articles, but there's actually a site dossier. And Site 06-3 is a humanoid containment site in France. And so that's why it was Dr. Moreau. Site 54 is a heavy-duty containment site in Germany. So, that gives a little context.
That is interesting. Had no idea. Wow. There's a lot of little things in this article I appreciate a lot. We'll get into that in a second, though.
All right. So I am going to be Dr. Richter, and you're going to be 51.
Of course. And this interview is in English.
Certainly. Hello, SCP-5151.
It's a pleasure, Dr. Richter. I presume you wish to conduct an interview?
Indeed. I would like to speak with you about the incident that occurred at Site 06-3.
Silence.
You made quite the mess there, 5151.
Dr. Richter, I understand that in the eyes of men, what I did may seem cruel. However, I purified their hearts. They were good people once, but they betrayed me. They broke their promise. They made their decision. They knew what I had to do. SCP-5151 proceeded to avoid eye contact with Dr. Richter and began to look around the cell nervously.
But something still seems to bother you, doesn't it, 5151?
They broke their promise. People always break their promises. They always break their promises and leave. Why can't they just keep their word? Why can't...
Actually, 5151, It turns out that the research team did not have a choice. They were deceived by a rival organization of ours. Did you happen to be aware of this?
What?
Indeed, someone infiltrated our site and acted as your research team's superior. This man specifically told Dr. Moreau not to allow MTF Pi-7 to visit you that day. Dr. Moreau had no choice but to listen to his superior.
SCP-5151 appears silent and is silent and appears visibly bothered.
5151? Do you have any input?
Silence.
All right. We will continue another day then. Thank you, 5151.
And log.
The following memos are correspondence between Senior Researcher Herman Rector and Site-54 Site Director Gerard Honshort. I have no idea how to pronounce that, to be honest with you. Concerning Dr. Richter's findings on SCP-5151. To the Site Director from the Senior Researcher concerning the new containment procedures. After studying and furthering Dr. Moreau's research, I have concluded that SCP-5151's hidden identity belongs to Honos, the Roman god of chivalry, honor, and military justice. Honos was a war god who was celebrated among the Romans, along with Virtus, the war god of virtue. These gods were given their own temple in Rome, where they were worshipped together until the temple was closed due to the persecution of pagans during the 4th century. It seems this event might be compounded with whatever trauma 5151 appears to be experiencing. Knowledge of this entity's identity is useful, since 5151 seems bound to this nature regardless of its own desires. In the interview I conducted, I found this conflicting internal nature of 5151. Although remorseful may not be the word, 5151 had some degree of depression regarding the events that unfolded, which leads me to believe that the entity cannot completely control itself when faced with an incident such as the one found in Incident Report 5151-IR.01. Dr. Moreau's team performed extensive research on 5151's nature, so I do not see any more need to continue this line of research. Although I appreciate the added containment procedures, I do hope you realize that these procedures will likely do little to prevent 5151 from reaching myself and my team if it is angered. Concerning -2, as Dr. Moreau's team attempted physical removal, I would like to test the removal of -2 by using SCP-500. That's the cure-all drug, by the way, for those who have not read that one before. I believe that since it appears to be some kind of anomalous condition, it might be possible to remove it using the cure-all drug. On the side note, Site Director, my research team is having issues coping with being linked to this entity. If you would be willing to provide some accommodations that might help reassure them in some way, I believe our research on 5151 will be dramatically aided.
Okay. And I will read the second email. To Senior Researcher Richter from the Director. Concerning new containment procedures. Dr. Richter, your input and concerns have been noted and your recommendations have been granted for the time being. It is the Foundation's desire for you to focus your research on the capabilities of 5151 to find ways to prevent it from being able to breach containment when faced with something as trivial as broken promises. As for your request, I will provide your team with routine therapy checkups until the situation blows over. They can stabilize themselves again. Concerning SCP-500, that will need to be discussed at a later time. For now, I look forward to hearing your future suggestions on how we should try to contain a god.
There you go. There's 5151.
All right. Real quick before I ask you more about this, I want to say one thing I appreciate a lot is like how much you actually explain the terms in it with like your footnotes.
Oh yeah.
Like especially the term that I can no longer remember that means like losing all your blood. That was something I never would have known about, but I feel like almost any other SCP article would have this one. I feel like almost any other article just would have not explained that with a footnote, but it helps a lot that you did. I think that's a nice touch.
Yeah, something kind of interesting. Whenever I was pitching this to different people and having other people read it, there was a couple people who mentioned like there's no real need to have a footnote there, and I was like, well, if I was a little bit younger, I probably wouldn't have known what that word was. but it's used a lot, and it's the best word for the situation. So I think I'll just leave it in there. So it's really interesting, and it's really rewarding to hear you say so.
Oh yeah, I think it's just such a detail that like takes nothing away from it if you already know what the word means, but it just adds to it if you don't. It's just nice to see stuff like that being made more accessible.
Yeah.
And also, I like that with SCP-500, you very subtly said it might be possible to remove it using the cure-all drug, which reminds people, oh, that's what 500 was. That's right.
Yeah, I totally.
Very subtle.
You noticed, like, I made that, like, little, like, you know, like, in case you haven't read the article, it's 500. Like, that's a cure-all drug. And then I forgot that was the next line. I completely forgot I actually wrote that in the article.
Very well done. That's a good detail.
Yeah.
Okay, well, tell me more about this article.
Yeah. So, I'm a big history buff. I've always loved history, and I'm really big into knights. I'm Whiteguard. My profile picture is of a white chess piece, a white knight. In particular, I used to play chess a lot, and I used to really like my knights. I had some of my own strategies with the knights, and so. If you couldn't tell, a lot of this article has to do with history. A lot of it has to do with mythology and honor. Because of my love for knights, I was going into this with the idea, I want to make a honor-bound knight, someone who has to uphold chivalry. And in the little phrase, in the little quote here, it was actually one of the first things I wrote, when making the article was, the brave fellow, do not worry about him, I dispose of him as I have with, others of his lot. But here's the line, loyalty is a virtue, and the lack of it will lead to the death of chivalry. My presence is a testament that chivalry will never die. Right? Mm-hmm. I had that line on like a little sticky note on my computer, like a little sticky note, and I just had that line. I was trying to think of something like an article to have that line somewhere in it, and so that was sort of my inspiration. A little bit about myself. I was here on the SCP Wiki back in 2014. So I've been around for a little bit. Towards the end of 2014, I read from the 001 proposals that were there back in the day, all the way up to, it was like halfway through like the 2000s, so like 2,500. So roughly like 2,500 articles.
And you read every single one? Yes,
I read every single one.
Same.
I read multiple throughout the day normally. And I read them all between the time span of towards the end of 2014 to the summer of 2015. Dang. And when I got caught up, I sort of distanced myself from the wiki. I sort of got caught up to where there wasn't really articles coming out fast enough. I really liked reading back then.
Yeah, I could tell.
But I had an idea of trying to write an article back then, and it never really got realized. And it probably wouldn't have been very good anyways. My writing skill wouldn't have been nearly as good. Not saying that my writing skill is great nowadays, but it's certainly better than it was then. So, fast forward 2019, I'm back on the wiki. I'm trying to write this thing, and to this day, it's the only actual article I have on the site beyond my interviews and beyond my staff work. It's my only real creative piece. And I sort of wrote it ignoring the warnings that people say about your first articles, like, don't make an X-Men. Don't make a humanoid that is, immensely powerful. Don't make a god. Don't make something that can't be contained. Don't make, all those things, right? Right. These are the things that, leave it to, the experienced author, to people who know that you can write about anything on the wiki and it can survive, but you have to make it interesting and you have to make it good enough. And when people follow those tropes, it makes it really hard to make it, do it right. And so, right. Normally the established authors are the ones who really need to do that. And I'm not an established author even now, right? I'm more so an interviewer. But I did write this article. I had a lot of passion behind it. I know that it's long. I know that some people don't like how many containment procedures it has, how much you have to do to accommodate this thing. I know people don't like the god or the X-Man factor to it. But I ignored all those concerns. I ignored all those warnings. And I wrote something that I thought I would really like and really enjoy. And this is the product of it. So I love everything really about this article.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you did a great job. I think a lot of those warnings are in place for a good reason, but I also think, like, a good author can pull anything off on this wiki. Like, no matter, a good author can write what is I wouldn't necessarily recommend this. I don't think it's necessarily been done, but a good author could write a clone of SCP-173 and make it good enough to stay on the site. Really.
Certainly. Yeah.
But I remember I was looking through the discussion post and I saw someone say they didn't like the article because he's too powerful, because he's just an X-Men. Exactly as you said. And I was like, that's just such a non-reason to like an article. Like, it's well written, it's a cool story, it has a cool narrative, the character's interesting, dialogue's really good. You don't like it because of, like, the core, like, this one piece of the core concept. That just seems really stupid to me, honestly.
Yeah, everyone's entitled to their own opinions. Everyone's,
Yeah,
I know people. I know people are sick of the whole X-Men and sick of the whole overpowered SCP thing. But really, that's not what my article's about. And that's sort of what you were getting into. Like, it's such a tiny amount. It's used as a catalyst to get towards the ending. And it is predictable to some degree. When you have a blood pack, something bad is going to happen. When you have someone who can walk through walls and walk through things, he's not really contained. Something's going to happen. Something's going to go down. And so, I wasn't really going for the whole shock value or surprise method or anything like that. I was really trying to get you to feel for this god, right? This guy who's, like, so powerful, so charismatic, so interesting, such a cool fella. You want him on your team kind of deal, right? I wanted you to feel for the guy. And, of course, we didn't really mention it, but if you do read the article, I'd love for you to go, anyone who's listening to this, read the article. If you love it, awesome. If you hate it, still awesome, man. I just like people putting their eyeballs on it and, let me know what they think. Even if they don't like it, I'm cool with it,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go ahead. We gave you, like, an intro. We gave you kind of, the resolution, what ends up happening. So go in there, read what happens in between the lines. But more or less, he has some trauma. You can tell that he's hiding something. And we all, have our trauma through our life. We all have stuff that we don't want to mention to other people that we carry on. And gods are no exception.
Right, yeah. That last line, especially, I really liked. For now, I look forward to hearing your future suggestions on how we should try to contain a god. That's pretty good. Very good line. I like that. Ending with the word god just puts, it feels like, it didn't feel like it was like an unnatural conclusion, but definitely felt like there was a lot more story to tell. Like, there's a lot more to wonder, like, what's going to happen going forward. It's interesting.
Yeah. I have my own, backstory of, what really happened in his past, and I don't know, maybe I'll make a tale of it at some point, but I think sort of the read in between the lines and figure out for yourself is really where it's at on this article.
Right. It's cool to hear that you have some more. I did actually look up the Wikipedia article that is based off of. Apologies to thrust you guys from the dark mode theme I'm using on the wiki to the white Wikipedia page here, but this is a really short Wikipedia page, if I have the right one.
Oh yeah, the about Zawiska Sony. I don't know how you pronounce it in Polish.
Honus? Is it the Roman
Honus?
god?
Oh yeah, the god. Yeah. There's not a whole lot known about that. God, really.
Yeah, I could tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to do some more research to sort of figure out. I knew what I wanted to turn him into. I wanted to turn him into some kind of god character, and I was sort of looking for it.
So the character came before the god that you decided to represent him as.
It did.
Okay.
But I found the name Anos before I did most of the writing. But the concept came to me before, I really linked it. I just knew it was going to be a god, and I was trying to figure out really how to sort of tie in. And I found, the honor god, and it shared a temple with another god. And again, not going to talk too much about it. Read it for yourself. Get into it. But, we sort of mentioned he has a brother. And so I found a temple, like the Anos and Virtus, or I can't remember what the name is of the god of virtue. They shared a temple in Rome, and so I played off of that to call them brothers. I played off of that to sort of get them into the same area together, and that's sort of how I tied it all in. A lot of this article, again, I'm really big into history. I know many people are not going to like read the article and then look up all these Wikipedia pages and all these different things, but there's a lot of history I put into this article, a lot of little things like that. So sort of, I didn't want there to be historical inconsistencies.
Mm-hmm. I can appreciate that a lot. I think it's honestly really cool when I could read an SCP article and then go look up something from that article and find it and like get more. It just adds so much depth when like you add these things that make it obvious that this could like exist in our world, sort of, you know, like it lines up with what is real.
Yeah.
As far as like history goes, obviously not like any of the supernatural elements, but you know.
Yeah, going alongside that, him calling some stuff the Black Knight at the very beginning, and you have the picture that I have on there, like with Suwis-Kazarni. I'm sorry, Polish people, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But if you look up, you know, about him, you know, of course, he was called the Black Knight, but normally we think of a Black Knight as something, you know, negative, someone who works behind the scenes, and it's more of the bad character whenever you think of, like, these old medieval tales. You know, there's the White Knight and the Black Knight, and the Black Knight's always the one that's evil.
Right.
But in real history, Suwis-Kazarni was called the Black Knight, and he was known for his chivalry above most of the other knights of that time. That was something he was really known for, his honor and chivalry. And he's sort of famous in Poland, from my understanding. So,
ironic.
Yeah, that's sort of where I got him tied in here. And, you know, once I got all these other historical facts tied in, I was like, man, this is going great. And it was a great time writing this. It was a great time.
Yeah, I can tell you had fun with it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, lovely article. I enjoyed reading this one a lot. Honestly, I'm not a huge history buff myself, but this made me very curious. So that's honestly a super cool effect. But also, I had this realization when you kind of hinted at it to me, but during one of the interviews, he mentions that he doesn't like electricity, so they replace it with oil lamps, and then they put an electric grid on his walls. I never realized. That makes complete sense, though, for his foundation to do that. Yeah. Good details. I love that stuff.
Yeah, if you look back in like the incident, like what happened there, you mentioned like the taser and all that, and that was really the only thing that sort of like he reacted to. And yeah.
I didn't pick up on that.
And it's not necessarily a weakness, but like it's the only thing that we've found that really 5151 just doesn't like. So
it's a lead.
Yeah. So that's where I got that. So
best way to annoy him a little bit, sort of, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, well, cool stuff. In that case, how about we talk a little bit more about interviewing icons?
Right.
So, tell me more about interviewing icons.
Yeah, so back when I was on staff and I was talking to some of the staff members and sort of getting you know, a feel for how interesting it was to hear about people, because a lot of staff members are authors, you know, on the site as well. I'm probably one of the ones who haven't written much, to be honest with you, amongst the like administrative team. Well, that being said, you know, everyone finds their own niche, and I believe I found my niche whenever I started talking to these different authors, and you know, I was asking about some articles they wrote, and I found it really interesting what their answers were. I was like, I think other people would find this interesting too, you know. So, I created 2 different series. The Meet the Admins was the first one, and then the Interviewing Icons was after. And they were concurrent, like they both went together. I was making both at the same time as well. But Meet the Administrators was first, and more or less, I did 10 questions myself with one of the administrators. Most of the administrative staff are the captain of like some kind of staff team, so I'd spend a little time talking about their staff team, what it's like being an administrator, some of their own work, and then I'd have about 5 questions for the community to ask, and I asked them for community members, whether it's the comments of the previous interview or, you know, the first one, I just, you know, grabbed some people I knew and asked them if they had any questions for the administrator that I was interviewing. And so my interviews was like 10 of mine, 5 community, and they were going really well, and people seemed to really like it. And so after that point, I reached out to Oh no, sorry, I was reached out to. DJ Cactus reached out to me and was interested in, doing an interview. I had mentioned to people that I want to do like site interviews as well, with non-staff members. And so then I did one with DJ Cactus, and it's a 20-question interview, and I've kept the same sort of structure in all my interviews. After that point, I messaged a lot of different authors. Wasn't expecting to get many replies, like people were busy. And I got a ton of replies, and now I have a backlog of people I need to interview. So always keep in mind whenever you're reaching out to people, be more optimistic than I was.
Yeah, I have had actually a very similar experience with Create stuff and and with SCP Authors Anomalous. I can't show you guys the Google Doc that has the list of people I want to have guest on the show, but let me say I have at least 20 episodes in the future planned, and I originally thought the series would maybe last for 10, so but not about me.
Fun times being an interviewer, man. Fun times.
Oh yeah. But I think I found your whole thing from your interview with DJ Cactus, because I actually read it. I read your interview with him to help prepare for my interview with him, just to find out a little bit more of what would be good to ask, what hasn't already been asked.
Right.
By the way, if you want to hear more from DJ Cactus, you should go check out Create Stuff episode 12, where I interviewed DJ Cactus. Link in the description. Plug. So one thing about your interviews, I'm honestly just going to compare your interviews with mine a little bit here, just to make it, just to give a center point to that helps me come up with some questions. These are all written, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So honestly, okay, I have to think of what I want to ask first, because I want to make sure this goes in kind of a natural progression. Okay, how do you conduct these interviews?
That's a good question. So I've actually conducted them a couple of different ways. To begin with, I just got on a voice call with, let's just start with DJ Cactus, and then I'll sort of go where, I've advanced from that point. But got on a Discord call with DJ Cactus, spoke with him some, just sort of got a feel for each other, a feel for what I was about, a feel for what he was about. DJ Cactus, great guy, really pleasant to talk to. Very, very interesting person as well. And a really good author. Someone who I like the works of, when I was used to be on the wiki back in the day. So, so reached out to him, got on a Discord call, had like a preliminary interview, as I call it. And it's more so where I just talk to the person, see what they're about, ask them like if there's any particular things they like to talk about. Normally, throughout the discussion, I get, maybe like 4 questions, that, like, from just talking to the person, I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask these 4 questions or something along those lines. Just from how excited they are, whenever they're talking about a certain topic, I can just tell, like, oh, they have some more stuff they want to talk about, and they'd like other people to know about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can really, like, gather a lot of things, just from, like, subtle, suggestion like that. And so, whenever I was talking to Cactus, I got, 3 or 4. And from that point on, I will go to myself. I have like a template, with like the 20 questions. Generally, I try to keep it very structured, with my interviews. The first 5 will be sort of introductory on the person. Could be how they found the wiki, could be their first writing on the wiki, stuff they like to read on the wiki, stuff that got them interested, stuff along those lines. Those are normally the themes of my first 5 questions. And of course, when I say like, my first 5 questions, and they have like a theme, every single interview I do, I always have different questions for everybody, but they do follow like, they're in like this intro theme.
Right.
The next 10, because again, I do like 20 question interviews generally. The next 10 is really the meat of it, really the body of it, where I address their most popular articles by rating. That's just a really simple and easy way to get some like their most popular works on the site. And so I address like their 3 most popular works. From that point, I then go a little freestyle. I pick out articles that I find really interesting, or really like interesting, like weird articles that they've written, whack articles, whatever it might be. I'll grab some articles like that, develop some questions concerning them, and then I normally try to address any like group of interest they might have created. If they've made a 001 proposal, that's cool. People always like to talk about their 001s. Contest winners, if they've won the contest on the site. Stuff like that. I'll put into the meat of it. And that'll be the 10 middle questions. And that sort of structure of that. And then to end with, I always have like 5 sort of reflection questions. If they used to be a staff member, how was it being a staff member? If you've been on the site for 10 years, what changes have you seen on the site in those last 10 years? I normally allow them the chance to talk about any future projects that they might have, or if they want to do a shout out of anything. I remember, you talked to them as well, but I remember DJ Cactus's shout out was Tanhoney and Darnell's Discovering SCP podcast, right?
Yeah, love Discovering SCP.
Oh yeah, great guys. Which they interviewed me as well. Or not interview. I was on the podcast, but they asked me questions. But you know what I'm saying.
Episode 70. I listened to it a little bit before this.
Yeah. So they can really put anything in there. I sort of leave that completely up to them. For example, Cactus is he's had his ups and downs in terms of controversy on the site. He's a great person, really interesting person, but he can be polarizing. And, anyone can be polarizing in their own degree, in their own right. It really just depends on the topic more so. And so, I did ask him a question if he wanted to explain himself on any of the like the polarizing aspects. And sometimes I'll address that, and if the author is comfortable. But that's something I'll always address in the preliminary review is, are you okay with talking about this? Right? If something happened in the past, like, are you okay with talking about this? You cool with this? Because the way I look at it, if I was working for some news agency and I was doing an interview, I wouldn't really, hold back too much. But I do hold back a little bit for these because these are going to be on the site, hopefully forever, right? And people are going to be going to these interviews to see what the person is about. And especially if they like the person and like their work, they're going to want to hear about their favorite SCP articles and their favorite tales and the favorite groups and stuff like that. And I don't want to sort of devote so much of sort of this timestamp of history. I don't want to devote so much of it towards controversy you can read about anywhere else. Right?
Yeah.
I want to give them a chance to talk about what they really want to talk about. I want to give them a chance to talk about what the fans of theirs would really like to hear about. And so I don't want to devote too much time to stuff that's, that'll bring a damper on things. Not saying I'm past it, and sometimes I will ask them questions like this, just like I did with Cactus. But I try not to dwell on stuff like that.
Yeah. And another thing is, like, these are obviously done more for fun than to try and get, like, this is something that's nice about the wiki, more than, like, for fun than trying to get clicks or views or anything. Not like, you're not trying to pull people in by being like, DJ Cactus controversy ! I think that's one thing that's really nice about it. Just I think that's kind of a trait of them being published on the wiki is that there isn't any feeling of this being done for fame or anything like that.
Yeah. I've never been compelled to try to put in like a question that I think people would find really drama filled and interesting that they would want to just click on my article and get some more ratings or anything along those lines.
Right.
Some of my articles are highly rated. I mean, some of my interviews are highly rated because it's a really well-known author. All of my interviews are well-known authors, to be honest with you. But, some of them are highly rated because it's someone who's written a ton of works that people, like. Some are a little less rated because people haven't really heard the name behind them too much. I'm sure more people would love Tanhoney and love to read his interview if he was a little bit more open about, which he has been in the recent past, but sort of in the far past, putting up an author post on his, really popular articles in, the early days and talking about it and such and so on, so that people could figure out the name behind, who wrote this article, right?
Right.
And Cactus came along at a time when, for example, back in like 2014, that there wasn't any, people weren't against the idea of these big author posts talking about, how they, wrote the article and some more explanation. It was a little bit, what's the word? It wasn't really the style of the early authors, if that makes sense, to really put their name behind the work. So
it was a little bit more anonymous, kind of like just a thing that comes from the 4chan roots.
Yeah, there was definitely a more anonymous feel, just dropping these here and, seeing who bites, seeing who finds it interesting. So
yeah.
But Cactus came around about a time that wasn't really a preconception. So a lot of his, articles like have a big author post talking about, the article, and a lot of people know DJ Cactus. And Townoni been making a name for himself recently with, being on Discovering SCP, winning the 5,000 contest. Obviously, even if people weren't looking, for his author post, they're looking for at least who the author of 5,000 is,
Oh, yeah.
So, that's why I used Townoni as an example. But Townoni came from a day when it wasn't as popular to do that. So, moral of the story, I've never really, been out for ratings. And the nature of what I write, the nature of the interviews I conduct here, they aren't going to get a lot of downvotes. And so I'm not too concerned with them not surviving on the wiki. And since I'm not concerned with them not surviving, I'm not really concerned with them, getting, hundreds of ratings,
That's good. That's great.
Yeah. As long as they don't get deleted, that's really all I really care about.
Understandable. All right. Then this is something I don't know how much people listening are going to care about this specifically, but it's something I want to ask about.
Sure.
What tips do you have for interviewing in general, or what have you learned about interviewing, the art of interviewing? A lot more that goes into it than people might think. I know that much.
Yeah, so even though a lot of my interviews, they hit the highlights of this person's, writing career or whatever the case, I always try to, grab something that I personally find interesting about them that maybe other people aren't just constantly talking about, right? If there's, a little article that, doesn't have, a high rating, right? I might grab that just because I find something really, special about it, or maybe, it's really different than what this writer's normally used to. And if you're able to, pull out stuff like that and make authors talk about, or, whoever it might be, if you're able to, highlight some of the stuff that doesn't get, constantly blasted back in front of their faces, right? DJ Cactus, he loves how, the reception of, what happened to Site 13, right? He loves how popular it is, right? But I'm sure he would love to hear more about some of the stuff that doesn't get brought up all the time, right?
Yeah.
So you still gotta include their highlights of I still had a question about Site 13. That was one of my favorite articles on the site, even still to this day is. And he had a really interesting response for it, right? He gave me some really interesting context. But you also gotta add some other things in there. You gotta add some things that people aren't always asking. And that's, that sounds, that sounds obvious, right? But I think a lot of people just forget to do it whenever they're conducting interviews. They forget to highlight little things.
Honestly, I don't think it is super obvious. It's what makes an interview not just another interview with DJ Cactus. You gotta have something unique there, You talk about all the popular stuff, and it's why should I watch your interview over any of the others, or in addition to any of the others?
Yeah. Something I would also say as a tip, I've found a lot of success by doing what I call my preliminary interviews, where I'll just talk to the person and we just have a conversation, as I would do. It's not on the books. Nothing that is in that preliminary conversation ever really gets out onto my article. It's only for the purpose of trying to get to know the person first. And if I'm able to get to know the person, I'm able to get a feel for what they want to talk about. And really interviewing is just giving the person who's being interviewed the outlet to voice what they truly want to talk about.
Right.
And so,
okay, cool.
Sometimes being an interviewer isn't just about asking questions. It's just about providing a platform, right? Obviously, you gotta come up with your own questions yourself. You gotta poke and prod sometimes to sort of get them to, get into a place to where they feel comfortable talking about something. But some people are just looking for a way to, like, it was really refreshing talking about my article there, right? Because it's not a very popular article, right? It's only in like the 70s rating wise, right? It's not a super popular article. It's been met with some criticism, right? Some people don't like it. Fully understand why some people don't like it. Totally cool with it. But like, I haven't had an avenue to tell people about all the little, tidbits in there, all the little historical facts or all the little things like I have in this little interview that you've, given me here.
Happy to provide you with that.
Exactly. And so, just think about it. Even the most prolific authors, even the most popular people, they still feel the same way, right? They still want to talk about, stuff that people don't ask them about,
Yeah, for sure.
But like, if you just come out yourself and be like, "Hey guys, this is something I want to tell everyone about," then it feels a little awkward. It feels a little, weird. You don't really want to do that, And so these people, they just never provide these little tidbits, and I want to give them a platform to provide the little tidbits about everything they want to provide,
Yeah, that is super nice. That's a great mission. Hearing people talk about the stuff they're passionate about, there is always you find a passionate creative person and ask them about the thing that they're passionate that they do, that is the stuff that they create, how do I say this naturally, the stuff they create, it's definitely not a reference to any other podcast that I run. They will go on and on if they are not like extremely successful and have not already talked about it 1,000 times at least. And honestly, giving people a platform like that just makes it's just so fun. You ask the right questions, you ask the right few questions, and then you can get so much interesting stuff with barely like just a little poking and prodding, Like my interview with Public Spam Account, I think is 3 hours long, and I asked like 3 questions in the first hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, of course. And so it's really a rewarding experience when I'm able to release an interview. Doesn't matter if it's highly rated or not. Doesn't matter if people are constantly on the buzz talking about it, right? But it's really rewarding whenever I've been able to talk to this legendary person in the scene, someone who's been passionate for years normally about this, sort of the same way I've been passionate about this stuff for years. And I'm able to just talk to them, talk about what they want to talk about what they've created, what they've provided. And then whenever I'm able to release it, their friends are able to see it. They're able to, they have a good time. It's kind of a joyous occasion whenever I'm actually able to release one. And it's just really good to see, some people come together. Again, they don't really get downvoted much. And if they did, I don't care. It's cool. If you don't want that kind of interview on the site, I get it. Some people just think this isn't the place for interviews. It's cool. It's up to you. Not trying to deter anyone from really downloading them. Okay. But, normally they're very, they're things that pretty much are always just upvoted. They're not downvoted. The people who are really happy to see them on the site are the ones who are actually going to be like looking at and reading it versus something along the lines of, when you have like the SCP articles, people will read them all and, they leave critique on how to get better and how to do better. Sometimes it's harsh critique, sometimes it's, gentle critique, and sometimes it's, just what they need, whether harsh or gentle. But it can be a little bit more of a, melancholy attitude, when you see a new SCP come up, and maybe it's not up to par or something along those lines. And that's just the nature of the beast. I'm not saying that there should be any kind of reform for that. But It's really rewarding and really interesting for me, as like an interviewer, publishing these, putting these on the site, and seeing how there's such a different, view. Because there was one written interview before I started doing these, and people really liked that. And whenever I started doing them, people kind of flocked to it. People really enjoyed it, and I sort of got a name as an interviewer. I'm not necessarily famous across like the entire SCP community, but the people who are really like sort of into it especially the people who find my interviews interesting. They really like it, and they really, it's just a rewarding experience all the way around. There's really no negatives in my mind whenever I'm able to publish one of these.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly think any more essay type content on the wiki, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, and I'm just maybe I'm a little bit weird for this, but I honestly think I may have read just as many essays and like stuff like that on this site as I've read SCP articles, and honestly, just because I find this stuff, honestly, the site of the SCP Wiki, like the idea of the SCP Wiki, interests me more than the fictional SCP Foundation does. Maybe that's partly why I focus more on that in these episodes. But I love stuff like this. Your interview series was great. This is exactly what I want out of the site.
Oh, I love hearing that, and that's something that I really enjoy. I think we have a really interesting history. And I'm always glad to be able to add to that history and be able to provide more insight into that history.
100%. It's been really nice. I find the history of the Foundation really, really good. Not really, really good. Really, really interesting. That's a much better way to say that. And I love reading about it. I love looking into it, even going through like forums and O5 command and stuff to figure out what's going on. You know, it's very interesting to me. Not saying I'm super interested in the drama necessarily, but just how like things came to be and what's going on, you know. I think it's cool. Just a culture like this it's just such an interesting part of the like modern day world and how the internet like words makes it so that things like this can exist, I guess. But that's a whole different topic. That's reaching a little bit. But yeah, I've really enjoyed your interview series. I haven't had a chance to read all of them yet, but I've been going through them.
Well, when you get a chance to get to that point, last summer, it was actually right after I got married.
Uh-huh.
Last summer, I released like a 4-part interview series, and it's part of my interviewing icons, but they're special ones. They include some artwork, whereas all my other interviews don't. And some additional context, and the whole theme of it, the idea was to celebrate like the anniversary of the wiki. I believe it was the 13th anniversary, and yes, it was 13th anniversary of the SCP Wiki on our current platform, Wiki.here, which is July 25th every year anniversary.
Uh-huh.
But I kicked it off, and all 4 of the interviewees are like the original people, including the first one being the dude who created this SCP Wiki on Wiki.dot, the administrator Fritz Willie. So whenever you get to that point, if I don't know if you're already ready yet, but yeah,
I think I might have. I can't remember. I know I've read your one with Dr. Gears. Not sure about Fritz Willie.
Yeah, Gears was the last one of before. Yep.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it was Fritz Willie, Dr. Clef, Kane Pathos Crow, and then Dr. Gears was the 4 of those.
That is super cool. 4 very, very big names.
Oh, yeah. And Fritz Willie is hard to get a hold of, and so that was a very interesting experience, trying to get a hold of him. And he gave me some... I feel like you probably haven't read it, because if you had, I feel like you would definitely remember it. It's one of my most, I think, interesting interviews. He's had
looks like I've already upvoted it, so I guess I did. I at least read like a little bit of it.
He's had a tough life, but man, it was super interesting hearing from this dude. I actually got all of his answers while I was on my honeymoon. So I was just laying in the hotel bed. My wife was like downstairs, like getting some food or something like that, and I was just like laying in the bed, like just like a tear in my eye, just crying about how rough, like how all the stuff he's been through. But man, like it's really cool how he was able to kind of save the wiki from what it was, because it was starting to die, and there wasn't really any succession plan. And when he started us off on Wiki.dot and seeing where we've grown, it's really cool to him and it's really cool to me. Just like looking through his eyes a little bit and seeing how far we've come.
God, all right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to read this after we're done here. You have made me very, very interested.
Yeah, and I wanted to make it sort of a community event to some degree. I added, most of the questions have some kind of like community artwork on it pertaining to, Fritz Willie or Clef's, pieces, including I did like a big, what do you call it? That's whenever you have all kinds of images put together. Collage, yeah. I have like 3 collages, I think, on all 4 interviews.
Yeah, I remember seeing some on Dr. Gears. I like those. Those were nice.
Yeah, I edited all those and put some quotes from the article, and I wanted to make it sort of a community event, and people really loved it. Really found it, the whole thing interesting. It was a great experience. Those took me a long time. All 4 of those interviews took me a long time to work on and do. And if you've noticed, my productivity on my interviews has really stalled since then. But I'm getting back into it. Hopefully I'll have another one in the next month.
Ooh, exciting to hear.
I'm just waiting on some replies. So,
Great.
But yeah, it was a very fun experience. Honestly, almost all the stuff I've done on the SCP Wiki, it's all been a fun time. All the people here are great. Yeah, great time.
For sure. Can I ask, what are your future plans for the series? Any can you say who you have upcoming?
I suppose it wouldn't hurt.
Ooh, okay, let's go.
Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't hurt. You can always. I have like a sandbox where you can sort of see my progress as I work on these. And so, although I don't announce who's going to be the next people or anything like that, it doesn't take a whole lot of research to figure out, what I'm really working on. But again, these people are lined up. I've already talked to them, and unless something falls through, and if they change their mind, a lot of these people I contacted over a year ago, and they agreed to do an interview, and a year can always change things. So.
Right.
Some of these might not come into fruition, but the next one will hopefully be a random day. Art, yes. So he will hopefully be the next one. I got Pepper's Ghost on the line. I won't mention what the name is for this one, but I don't just interview authors. I also interviewed the Exploring series, which is another YouTuber. The Exploring series was actually the reason I returned to the website, so that I actually did all these, which is kind of interesting little tidbit there. But
yeah, I read his interview. I like that a lot.
Yeah, but the Interviewing Icon series, it's not just for the authors. It's really for all the people who really contribute to the wiki, and like a meaningful way like that. And so, the Exploring series, I'm going to be doing YouTubers in the future as well. I already have another one lined up for that. But I'm also going to be doing some artists. And so, hopefully that will be within the next 2 or 3 interviews. It will be an artist interview. But I won't mention what the name of that person is yet, since they'll be the first.
Ooh, okay.
But yeah, I have some more interviewees lined up. And, I hope to resume my Meet the Administrator series, some point soon. I'm waiting on a certain event to happen, with one of them, and then I just need to work on the other one for the other person. So, and who knows, maybe I'll get someone to interview me since I'm an administrator now. But, I do intend on working on them. I'm a little busy at the moment since I'm trying to revitalize the community outreach team, and I still have a hand in the maintenance team, as well. So, and I'm newly promoted administrator, like you mentioned at the start of the interview, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of the future for it.
Very cool. I'm very excited to see more of what you release, and also very excited to go through and read more of them because I enjoyed these a lot. Real quick, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in. Do you want to talk about administrator stuff, or are you burnt out?
No, I'm good to continue.
Okay, awesome. Well, okay, as you briefly mentioned there, you have recently become an admin on the community. Would you tell me a little bit more about what that's like?
I would say the main difference is seeing my account messages flashing all the time now. Because every time someone applies to the SCP Wiki, I get a notification that someone has applied to the SCP Wiki.
That's annoying.
So we do have like a little program, a little script that you can run that will delete them quickly. But you still have to you still have to like do a little bit of, work to do that. So even though I've deleted like 300 already, I got like 151 currently that I'm looking at.
God.
But besides that, I have some more access to some more private channels, a more intimate relationship with the administrative team, to be able to talk to them about some, higher up issues. I was already a team captain, so I was used to a lot of that. But there have been some more avenues opened up to me because of that. Of course, my whole experience with staff, it was something I really got into right after I finished up my article. I finished up my article, people liked it, I knew it was going to stay, and from that point on, I was like, how else can I contribute to the site? And so, got into staff as a junior staff member, working butt off, worked really hard, and people really liked that and really saw some value in my work. And at some point, throughout the years now, I became an administrator through people trusting me to do a good job. So, but with your original question, what's really different about being an administrator? Just being able to talk to. I was already able to talk to the administrative team, but just really having sort of like a first look at some issues that are going to be coming up in the near future that we haven't really passed down to the rest of staff or the rest of the community that we need to do a little bit more research in. The stuff like that comes up. Not necessarily all bad things, and not necessarily all good things. Just stuff that we need to deal with just to help keep the site running. So
very important work.
I know it happened before I joined the administrative team, but I know it was something that happened because I can read the messages that happened before I joined. But stuff like Nutfall, as we call it, as we termed it, where SCP-173, the image, was taken down. Stuff like that. The original decision to really come up with that and sort of the conversations going on behind the scenes concerning it. Even now, still more conversations and more things to iron out. It's not as simple as just taking the image down,
Yeah.
But stuff like that, it just comes up. So those are really
some interesting stuff.
Those are really like the main things. Just different things that mainly some preliminary stuff that might happen to the wiki in the future, and things that I can't really announce right now, obviously. But that will be announced in the future. As well as just sort of getting the ropes. Obviously, only administrators can accept applications to the site. So, although I haven't really been accepting applications, I've been dealing with some people who want to reach out to an admin about that. Our Wonder Kid, our Zen, the administrator, she does a great job of dealing with all the applications. I don't see how she does it. So, stuff like that is what it can be expected of an administrator. But we have a big team now, and I think we all do a great job at it. So.
Yeah, wonderful. I think the administration team does a great job as well. Zen is definitely somebody I want to have on this podcast. I've seen them around so much, like since I first joined this site and submitted multiple bad ideas to the ideas critique forum.
Great person.
Yeah, for sure. If you're listening to this, Zen, hit me up, by the way. But yeah, super cool. Tell me more about this, the community outreach team, by the way. I know you mentioned that.
Yeah. So, the community outreach team, if people aren't too aware of what they do, which is kind of an oxymoron, but kind of sad, been a little dormant for a while. The main thing that people know us for is we run contests. So the current contest going on right now is run by CO. More specifically, Round Your House is leading it up because it was his idea. But normally that's run by our contest committee, which I myself am a part of since I'm the captain of community outreach.
Mm-hmm. That's Department Con, right?
Yes, Department Con. Yep. It was Round Your House's idea. I think he came up with it back in November or something like that. Procyon Loader, the captain before me, he brought me up as a vice captain, and then when he stepped down, I became a co-captain, and then my co-captain stepped down, and now I'm sorry, was that how it went? No. There were two. I'm sorry. There were two vice captains. Two vice co-captains, if you want to call it. McBee was the other one. McBee is taking a step back too. So, myself, I am the sole captain of community outreach, and there is a vice captain, Nepik, who's great. I love Nepik. Nepik does a lot of good work, and we are trying to revitalize the community outreach team with so many things happening to the wiki, some different controversies that we've had to handle, some different technical issues with the platform and such and so on. A lot of staff attention has been diverted away from community outreach and towards the other staff teams. And because of that, community outreach initiatives, the stuff that we used to do, doesn't get really done anymore. And so we're trying to revitalize that. There's going to be an announcement soon. I'll go ahead and mention, we're going to have a little bit of new leadership among the sections. So we separate each of our team into these subsections, and these subsections are like little sub-teams. So like there's a contest sub-team, right? And there's a leader for each of these sub-teams. And so we're going to be changing up some of the, and of course everyone already knows about it, all the involved parties. But we're going to be changing up some of the leadership of these sub-teams to hopefully revitalize them. We have some new ideas. We're going to change how some of them run. In the past, we've run seminars for people, either writing seminars hosted by people who are really good at some aspect of writing that other people can, attend, listen to, and contribute to, as well as some intro seminars for people who are really new to the wiki. That has been done in the past. It's been a little while since we've run a seminar, so that's, as I was saying, a lot of our teams have been dormant for a little while, but myself and Nepik and the rest of the crew, we're going to try to get revitalized and get some really interesting content, some really interesting stuff for the community to enjoy. But yeah, we're going to be checking up some of the leadership. Site news. I've been the editor for the monthly site news, which has not, we did not have a November edition, and we haven't had one since then, because it's being reworked. And everyone will learn about that in the next coming weeks as to why. But side news will be continuing. It will be taking a different form, though. Again, with the contest, we're running a contest. We're always planning new contests, and then there's new member introductions where we have people, introduce members to the site and answer any questions they might have, and that's going to be taking a different form. So community outreach is going to look very different a month from now. But I'm really excited to show everyone next. Should be an announcement next week or so.
Awesome. Super exciting. Can't wait to see that.
Of course. But yeah, we already have some interesting contests. We're going to have one coming this summer, and I don't mind just mentioning that it's going to be coming this summer, just because I'm not going to reveal to anyone what it's about. So
right. Fair enough. I wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah, so lots of planning in the community outreach team. Hopefully we'll have some doing in the coming future.
All right, cool. I can't wait to see what you guys end up doing.
Yeah, it should be a fun time.
Yeah. All right. In that case, I think this is a good place to start wrapping this up. Whiteguard, it was wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for coming on. It was seriously so interesting to talk to you about all this stuff. You definitely have something very, very unique to talk about here.
It was a great time. I really enjoyed it, and it's always fun, talking about some of my work on the site, and also just talking to other people about the site. The SCP Wiki has fostered a really interesting culture here and a really interesting group of people that contributes to it, and I just love being a part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the exact same way. Awesome culture. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on, Whiteguard. I appreciate it a ton. It's great to have you. Great
to be here.
Yeah, all right. Well, see you guys in the next episode. Everything that we talked about will hopefully be linked in the description, unless I forget. All right, bye-bye, everybody.